So shortly after you sent me off to theological school with my wife, Wendy Bachhuber, to California to start King School for the ministry, one of my classmates was Lynn Unger, now the Reverend Lynn Unger, and this reading was written this week by her for all of us Unitarian Universalists. Love is the doctrine of this church. Service is its prayer. Sometimes love looks like a warm hug or a hand clasping ours. Sometimes service looks like showing up, being there when times are hard. But right now, love looks different. Service looks different. It looks like opting out of some things that give us joy, because we will not risk spreading tragedy. Love right now is creating physical distance, a distance that becomes a barrier to the spreading of disease. This does not mean that love and service go into hiding, or that physical distance means feeling alone. Love sounds now like a phone call to someone who could use a friend. It looks like a card sent with a note of thanks. Love feels like a web conference where people laugh together. Service can also be a note to a neighbor, perhaps asking if they have everything they need. Service can be a bag of craft supplies dropped off to a neighbor whose kid's school has been canceled. It can be an extra tip to a worker whose hours have been cut at the restaurant. Love is the doctrine of this church, and service is its prayer, which means we make the compassionate choice to place physical distance between one another, so that we need to become more creative then in strengthening all of our relationships, cultivating laughter and joy through a web of connections that is deeper and broader and more enduring than anything we can find even together in one room. So we're talking about love and service and the search for truth at distances now, sometimes great distances. Let me tell you, I know what that feels like and what it looks like. Because you have been with me in my heart for all of these 33 years after you sent me and Wendy off to California and theological school. And for all of those 29 years since you ordained me, in this stole, as a matter of fact, that I'm wearing now. You've been with me across time, across the space of a continent, alongside the love and encouragement of thousands of other people who've invited me over these 33 years into the most intimate, powerful moments of their lives. You were there. You've always been there. But it started out very close, a very important physical presence. Running through these halls. One time I was running through the halls during the worship service when it was back when what's now the fellowship hall, and you could hear my feet going boom, 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 up and down the hallway, and George Whitney stopped the service, grabbed my shoulder, took me to Carol Brody and said, "Deal with this." But he became a dear mentor to me over the years, both as a child and later as a new minister. I learned from you as a child, then as a teenager, and then as a young man, how to survive terrible things and to cherish joyful things. You gave me the things I most cherish about myself. You saved my life. More than once. You did it with reason and love, like your vision statement says you will. You saved my life with your love many times. So I was thinking about singing Spirit of Life because it became a very important song for Unitarian Universalists over the years. That was in the 1990s. But before that song had been written, when I was a child, I needed something tangible to carry around with me, especially when I'd get to the playground and someone would say, have you found Jesus yet? And I would say, where? No one made a chalice necklace in those days. That was probably just as well because I would have lost it. But one of my Sunday school teachers, Hilda Maston, suggested in 1970 that I memorize a covenant that was on the church brochure. I still know it. We just read it. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth, a sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve all people in fellowship to the end that all souls grow into harmony with the divine. This do we covenant with one another. It's a little different now, but those are the words burned into my heart, and I've used them many times over the years. I've also disagreed with them more often than not in various places. In fact, where I disagree shifts over the years. And isn't that what we do as Unitarian Universalists? We keep working to adapt and to grow. We create new visions for new times. I went onto the internet last night. I read the one for this congregation that's currently on the website. The vision of First Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbus is to transform and heal ourselves and our world through reason and love. And that sounds really familiar. Different words, but it sounds really familiar because that's exactly what you did for me. Your compassion for me was here, in this heart, in this soul, when I was a theological student praying with that distraught father. Here, when I held the hands of parents at the graveside of a child. Your dedication to me lived here when I joined a playgroup with other young parents in California. And it turned out the day that I met them and joined the playgroup, that when they asked me what I did, I said I was a Unitarian Universalist minister. They gasped. I thought I was in trouble. And they said, we've been wanting to start a Unitarian Universalist church. So we did. It's now the Mission Peak Unitarian Universalist congregation in Fremont, California. Your encouragement was courage to me over the years. I helped start the Columbine Unitarian Universalist Church in Littleton, Colorado. You've transformed my life. And that's what you have promised to do for yourselves and each other. You taught me to heal myself where I had trauma. And I want you to know that as I'm standing here with you this morning, or as you're listening to the recording of this later this week, because I sure as hell hope you're doing the same thing now that you did for me. I want you to know how much it matters. Other congregations do this transforming and this healing also. And it's not easy to do consistently. It's not easy to do well. We all struggle to do it well and consistently. I'm sure you do too. Especially these days. We're in a huge struggle this week. I had to rewrite this sermon 2 times. Things are changing so fast. The COVID-19 pandemic, it's arrived in Baton Rouge, where I am now. It's arrived here in Columbus. I heard it on the radio station yesterday, WOSU. Your next in-person worship service may not happen for several months. It probably won't happen for several months in Baton Rouge. I actually closed the entire building on Friday. Part of the reason people are keeping a 10-foot distance around me is that one of the staff members has the symptoms of COVID-19. I do not want to share it with you if I happen to have it. I'm keeping to my car and keeping away from people. This morning's services in southern Louisiana are live streaming on the internet. So there are logical, well-reasoned, it's a logical, well-reasoned decision to close the church building in Baton Rouge. I'll learn that from you, reason and logic, right? It's what we do. We transform it. One of the ways is through reason. A lot of the congregation down there thinks I've overreacted. Yeah, they're from Louisiana. They're used to hurricanes and all kinds of stuff. Some of them think I'm underreacting. I'm sure I'm doing a bit of both. But they know, and I know, and I hope you know, that the irritations we're experiencing around all of this, the fears we're experiencing around all of this, they mustn't get in the way of our making good decisions, both the ones of reason and the ones of love. Because there are still lives to be saved. Yes, you saved mine. I know you've saved others. There's still lives to be saved. So, and that's really annoying. Because some of you have come up, some of you I've known for 40, 50 years. I'm looking at the picture of Art Beach back there. I grew up with Art Beach. If he were here, I'd want to give him a big hug, and I can't. I want to meet some of you. I haven't met all of you yet. I want to share old memories, and I want to hear how you're healing and transforming lives today. What are you doing today? What's going on? Someday we're going to sit down and do that, sitting next to each other in chairs, but not today. We'll do it. Perhaps later this year. Maybe sooner. So we're doing church online. Most of our congregations will be here in the next couple of months. It's darn hard to sing by choir by internet. It doesn't work at all, because I've tried it. It's no fun to eat at a potluck all alone, where yours is the only dish, right? When you're on the internet, jokes just aren't as funny. Our bodies are meant to be close to one another. Truth is, if we didn't need love, all we needed was reason and logic, we'd have closed every church building years ago because we just do everything by the internet. But our bodies and our love are very physical things. We still need buildings. We still need to see each other laughing, crying, cherishing, sometimes even resolving conflict. I still remember how important Sunday school was to me. I had a volunteer teacher who kept showing up for me. I cannot remember his last name for the life of me, which is a little embarrassing for me. He was a great guy. He taught at Ohio State. He was a political science professor, and I know that he was pretty influential because he was quoted by Henry Kissinger several times. He was a pretty smart guy. He was a very cool guy, too. I still remember his first name because every time I came to class, I called him, "Hey, Herman, how you doing?" He hated that. And I knew he hated it. He still came every Sunday, and so did I. So what's church going to be like during this pandemic? I don't know yet. What's it like to do church online? It's not going to be quite as close. It's not going to be as embodied, and that's going to be weird. And we really don't know how that's going to work out. But I know how church can be. It can be like the way you've been with me for 33 years. Across a continent, across the years. Close in heart and soul, even though so far away in time and place. So, I have something I want to ask of you all. Please do not get lazy in these difficult times. It's now as important as it's ever been to go to church, even when we have to be physically distant from one another. Don't blow off church because it's just on the internet next Sunday morning. Just because it's an internet broadcast and no one's going to really know if you're there or not. We're still learning how to do church well at these distances. Please keep showing up for each other. It really does matter. And this is how I know it's true because of an experience I've had years after I left this congregation physically, but still carried you with me. I know how important it is to hold this love at a distance. I learned it when I was working in the church office of the Columbine Unitarian Universalist Church in Littleton, Colorado, back in April of 1999. The story begins on the 19th of April that year when the sheriff had blocked off the road between the church building and the school. We were only a block and a half away from each other, the church and the school, the Columbine High School. When I realized what was happening, because I could hear the gunshots, I went to the deputy at the barricade. He said, "You can't come here." I said, "Yeah, I know, obviously, but how can I help?" He wasn't very impressed with, "Who are you?" I went home and put a collar on. Came back and he said, "Oh, we need you. Go up to the school," and told me where to go. So I went to the elementary school. I had to wind through the neighborhood to get to the elementary school where kids from the library were coming out later that day. Now, we'd started that congregation 6 or 7 years earlier. The church grew quickly after we started. Its membership doubled. It had a thriving religious education program. We'd bought our own building. After a couple of years, we'd renovated a daycare center into a church. We had a very active social justice ministry in the church. The neighborhood was dominated by conservative evangelical churches. So this Unitarian Universalist congregation provided meeting spaces for groups that could meet nowhere else in the neighborhood. We were a welcoming congregation. We flew a rainbow flag from the roof, and one hung out from outside the front door. Those flags were stolen several times. We invited a gay and lesbian concert. Today it would be a queer concert or lesbian, gay, transgender, bisexual concert. But in those days, a lesbian and gay concert in that neighborhood was a big deal. We actually called the local newspaper and wanted to put an ad, and they said, "Oh, no, we're not doing that." So we put posters all over the neighborhood. They got torn down, beginning the next day. We just printed more and put more up. I got a call shortly before the concert was going to happen. It's back before there were cell phones, so this was a pay phone. I could tell it was a pay phone because I could hear the automobile traffic in the background, cars whizzing by. I picked up the phone and said, "Columbine Unitarian Universalist Church," and there was a pause. And then a young voice said, "Is this the church having the gay concert?" And I said, "Yes, it is. Does your church think it's okay to be gay or lesbian?" Now, knowing the context of my neighborhood, I shifted my theological language a little bit, and I said to them, "God loves us if we're gay, if we're lesbian, and if we're straight." "Okay, thank you." Dial tone. Years later, it was a day or two after the shootings at the Columbine High School. I'd gone up to that elementary school. I saw more than I ever want to say from a pulpit, but it was important that this Unitarian Universalist congregation was there. I can tell you were with me as I wore that collar and showed up to that school. I didn't know what I was doing. Bullets had whizzed by there just less than an hour beforehand. It felt scary. It felt scary. What am I going to say to people whose children are coming out of a library like that, hopefully alive? You were there with me. In the days then that followed, as you were there with me, I came to understand how it was to minister to people in the aftermath of great disruption, of great sorrow, of trauma and loss. We had teens come into our church, some kids, the kids who had been trench coat wearers in the Columbine High School. They were forbidden from wearing trench coats, but they were still blamed for being part of the shootings, even though all of the kids in the church who'd worn trench coats had nothing to do with the shootings at all. That Unitarian Universalist church was the only church that would welcome that group of kids into a room where they could get counseling, trauma counseling, in the entire neighborhood. No one else would take them. I heard them laughing, I heard them crying, I heard them sighing. They left, chattering among one another, talking about what they'd experienced, what they were going to do next. Shortly after they left, a young woman came to my office. She came to the door. The receptionist at the church saw her. She had 2 suitcases with her, old beat-up suitcases, and the receptionist said, "I'll take those. Let's just put them here. They'll be fine. I'll watch them." The young woman came and sat with me in my office. She told me she'd just turned 18. She had come out to her parents as lesbian. The moment she came out, her parents disowned her and kicked her out of the house on her birthday. The first place she knew to go was the Unitarian Universalist Church. We talked for a while. She really wanted to be connected with a Christian, specifically Christian community. I had a Methodist colleague in downtown Denver. I called her up because I knew she was safe and loving and explained the situation. She said, "I'll be right down." So she began to drive down to pick this young woman up. And while we waited for my colleague to come down and pick her up, she told me, "You know, I called you." And in a flash, I thought, "Oh." And I said, "On the payphone." She said, "Yes." About the concert. She said, "Yes." She'd seen our rainbow flag. She'd seen the posters, the church phone number at the bottom of the posters. She told me that she had considered suicide when she understood, she realized that she was a lesbian. She had seen the rainbow flags. She had seen the posters. She had known at a tremendous distance of culture and experience. She had known across that the love of that church and its people. We gave her hope, even though we had never met her, except on a very brief phone call from a payphone call. It's what she needed to survive. That day in April 1999 has been a touchstone for my ministry. You were there, across years of time, thousands of miles. You know how to do it. And in times like these, it becomes ever so much more important to keep on connecting across those great distances, even when it's going to be hard, even when it's going to feel strange, and we're experimenting how to make it right. Keep on doing that ministry. I know you can do so well. Your ministries have saved lives. They saved mine. Please keep on saving lives.